Welcome to On the Mic. I'm Jake Killeen. On today's episode, we have the US Mid-Amateur Champion Lukas Michel joining us. Lukas is a 26-year-old, originally from WA, now residing in Melbourne. Over the last 2 seasons, he's had 4 top 10s in major events around the world as an amateur, including a runner-up in the Vic Amateur 2019. I want to welcome him to the show. Thanks for joining us, Lukas.
No, thanks for having me, Jake. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, mate. It's great to chat with you. Very exciting times in your life, in your golf career. So it's exciting that we can have a chat about it. I want to start with your amateur career and your beautiful big win last year in the US. Very exciting for you. How does it sound, mid-amateur champion?
Yeah. It was a great win. Obviously, everything that comes with it that I'm still waiting to experience. But yeah, to have that title as a USGA champion, the USGA hosts some of the best events in the world with the US Amateur and all that. And I know that the Americans over in the US, even just to play in a USGA event, that's a great privilege. So to be able to win one is incredible. And my name goes on a big wall of fame they've got in the USGA head offices in New Jersey. So I'm yet to go visit that. But to see my name up against the wall with, all the US Open and US Amateur champions and all of those is pretty sweet. So
congratulations on the win, mate. That's epic. Also, for those playing at home, for those that don't know, the event is one of the biggest in the world as an amateur to compete in. It's the mid-amateur event. It's called that because you got to be over 25 years of age. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So there's a lot of guys that play it that maybe had solid college careers, but felt like they wanted to move into sort of normal sort of work. And then there's a lot of other people that play that may have had professional careers as a golfer, and then reinstated their amateur status and still want to play competitive golf, so decide to play mid-amateur golf, which is sort of a big thing over in the US. So it's a pretty competitive event. I'd say it's probably not to the same level as US Amateur, but there's some very, very good players. And some players, I think someone did the numbers. It was about, 200 or 300, PGA Tour starts, players that had played PGA Tour events in the field of however many players there was. So there was a few guys that had played on the PGA Tour and the web tour. So
yeah, absolutely. Strong fields, and we'll get to that soon too. But you touched on what it gives you, that win, and I'll touch on that. A US Open invite. Mm-hmm. I know that it's not a necessity to get a US Masters invite. I know that's not one of the criteria, but normally I think you'll get one. Yeah. And as we've seen, you have been given one. So that's epic in itself. That's so fantastic. And also, if you stay amateur for another year, I guess you get into the US Amateur. Yeah. That tournament you're talking about next year. So are you going to stay amateur after these events, or are you going to turn pro, or you're not sure yet?
Well, my original plan was to play the Masters, play the US Open. Depending on how I played in those two, I'd probably look like I played really well, like maybe made both cuts and placed quite highly. I'd probably be able to get maybe some tour starts potentially. So I would have turned pro for those, but with how everything is panning out, that all those plans are sort of changing. Like it's all very fluid. I don't know what's going on. So I've just got to sort of wait and see and plan out my schedule. But yeah, the original plan was to turn pro sometime after the US Open, potentially play the US Amateur, and then look at some qualifying schools, maybe Japan and Europe after that. But we'll see what my schedule looks like now. I've got to wait and see. But I'll definitely now be waiting for both majors, obviously. And then after that, I'll have to figure it out.
Yeah, well, the US Open's now, I think, played before the Masters this year. So that's interesting mentally to sort of figure that out too. And I think it's at Winged Foot, which is, is that Jeff Ogilvy's
It is,
win too. So that's hopefully the worlds align there. So that'll be pretty cool to play. Something you've sort of watched on TV before, and Jeff Ogilvy winning.
Yeah, I actually watched the Foxtel had a little hour-long little segment on Jeff's win there. They showed the last 3 or 4 holes played, and it was cool to see it and knowing that that's where I'll be playing. Yeah, that's awesome. I've actually been to Wingfoot. I've played the course there. I played it a couple of years ago during one of my little trips over to the US playing amateur golf. I managed to have a round there. So I've had a little early scout visit to see
what do you think of the course? What do you think of it?
Well, from the I think we played, I don't know if we played the very, very back tees. We probably played just like the member sort of back tees, like the blue tees. But I mean, it wasn't that difficult, you know, without the rough way up and without it playing at its full length. It was still a tough golf course, demanding off the tee, and you can see how it is so difficult in those US Opens. But when I played it, it was very fair and very enjoyable. So had a good time there.
Yeah, nice, mate. And yeah, you touched on you've been. I looked it up. The last sort of 4 years or so, you've had a lot of trips over to the US and actually into Europe to play bigger amateur events. So, how has that sort of experience helped your game and your progress as an amateur and maybe into the pro ranks a bit later?
Yeah, so I've been going overseas for like you said, probably 3, 4, 5 years now. My first trip over was actually I went over to Europe for a exchange with my university. So I actually studied at the University of St Andrews in Scotland for 6 months, which was pretty unreal. So I spent 6 months there, and obviously getting exposed to different conditions, different golf courses, links courses, more wind, even though we do get quite a bit of wind in Melbourne. The wind on the coast there in Scotland is pretty brutal. So sure. Definitely getting that sort of exposure makes your game a little bit more rounded, and it's definitely valuable for future if I want to take my golf further. So that was great. And then like you said, every year after I've been overseas, and last 2 or 3 years it's been mainly to the US. Just the events over there are so competitive, and the number of good players you got to compete against. Some of those amateur events, like the Southern Amateur, the Western Amateur, and all those, they're probably stronger fields than a lot of pro events around the world. So
yeah, sure.
You're sort of teeing up your game against some of the best players in the world, even if they are still classified as amateurs. It's great because normally when I go over there, it's winter here and there's nothing on. So to be able to get sort of year-round tournament practice is great.
Absolutely. And do you like the sort of windier, more links style courses, or what's your favorite type of course to play when you compete?
I sort of struggled a little bit in the US generally. I don't think my game is super suited to US conditions. It was kind of funny to win the US mid-amateur, but the course we played was set up very much like a sandbelt course. It was really firm. It was quite wide. So I felt really at home there. But your typical US parkland, kind of long, rough, narrowish fairways, lots of trees, hasn't really suited my game in the past. I've sort of struggled on those sort of courses. Whereas I probably have felt a little bit more home at a links style golf course. I'd say I'm sort of longer than average off the tee and maybe a little bit wayward. So, the tight tree line courses probably aren't my favorite.
Fair
enough. But, got to get used to that sort of stuff because a lot of tournaments are played on those courses. So to get that experience in the US is pretty valuable.
Yeah, excellent. Well, coming back to that mid-am, it's, I think 4,000 entries come into that event every year. And I think 234 get in the field. And our boys come out on top. So, I mean, that's quite amazing in itself too. So talk me through the setup of these events. Is there like a stroke play, match play component? Do you like that format? Talk us through the format of the actual championship.
Yeah. So when you say there's 4,000 and something or other entrants, they have a qualifying series where there's a bunch of one-day qualifiers. There might be 60, 70 players in the field, and 4 players get into the field, that sort of thing, and they have them around the US. Fortunately, I was exempt through that stage based on my world amateur ranking. So I didn't have to worry about qualifying into the field, which was great.
Is that like a top 100 or something, or top?
It was, I think it ended up being the top 30 ranked mid-ams.
Okay.
Got into the field.
Cool.
Yeah, so I made it in through that. So then after that, obviously, you get automatically into the field. So I knew I was into that stage. So for me, it was worthwhile to travel all the way to the US, even just for that opportunity to play in that event. Because, at the end of the day, there's a US Open and Masters, likely Masters invite coming with it. So, and then after that, the 230 odd players play 2-stroke play rounds, and then it's match play after that, top 64. So I haven't had a lot of success in match play tournaments, to be honest. The Aussie Amateur, I always seem to draw a really good player early on. So I think I was maybe overdue for a good little run in. And fortunately, my game got better and better as the week went on, and played really well and ended up winning.
So what did you qualify from the stroke play rounds?
I think I qualified tied 34th or something like that. So pretty much bang in the middle. It was not a bad place to qualify. And like I said, I felt like I got a pretty nice run in. I played well, but I didn't get anyone that played out of their skin like you sometimes do.
Sure.
And then I played a really good player in the semi-final, Stuart Haggerstad, who he'd won the tournament 2 or 3 years before, and played the US Open the last 3 years by qualifying in. So he's just an outstanding player. And played probably my best golf of the week to beat him, which was awesome. And then, got into the final and played well again.
So that semi-final, did you, was it close all day, or were you on fire and you sort of blew him away a bit, or how did that?
So my caddy actually he was an American guy. He played in the tournament as well. And and he actually played Stuart Haggerstad in the first round of match play and got knocked out by him. So Will Davenport's his name. He told me, this guy, he got up on me early and I just couldn't fight back. And that's what he'd done all week to all his other opponents. I don't think he'd ever been down at any point in any of his matches. So Will sort of told me, you gotta step on this guy early and try and put him in an unfamiliar position.
Yeah, nice.
And thankfully I did. Like, I played really, really well the first 7 or 8 holes. I was 3 under and it was blowing a gale. So I was 3 up there and then held on for dear life for the rest. He actually got to 1 up. He clawed it back to 1 up, I think, with 4 holes to play. And then he made a couple of mistakes coming in, and I made a nice birdie on 16, and the rest was history. I ended up winning 2 up. So that was a tough battle, and I had a few close encounters before that, but that was a good one to win.
So nice inside intel into the man. That's good.
Will was very helpful there.
Yeah, I'm sure he takes some credit for it.
Yeah, he does.
That gets you into the final. Now, you played a guy called Joseph Deraney. Now, obviously, most people at home probably wouldn't know this guy, but I had a look at his record leading up to the tournament, and I'm not sure if you knew how hot he was, but in the previous 5 events, he'd won 3 of them, came second in the other one, and I don't know what he did for the 5th, but it didn't matter. He was on fire, this man. So, how was the mentality going into the last match? Did you know that he was running that hot, or?
I don't know. I think I kind of in my head was like trying not to think too much about things and not looking into too many people. Like, I obviously knew that Stuart Haggerstad was a good player, but in my mind, he was clearly the best player in the field, when in actuality, Joseph might have been the hottest player coming in. And certainly the first 18 or 27 holes, Joseph showed that he was the hottest player coming in, because he played flawless. He hit the ball so well. I've never seen someone hit it so straight and long. He was a great ball striker. I could tell his putting maybe could let him down a little bit.
Right.
He hadn't missed anything silly, but he hadn't made anything.
Why is that a trend? Why is that a trend with good ball strike?
I don't know. I guess he'd be on tour otherwise.
Well, it's quite amazing, isn't it? You're true. And keep going with that. He hit it mid, and then
Yeah, he was just flushing it. I was
Mm.
putting the dots off it all day.
Yeah.
Still hitting it okay, but nothing special. And then sort of with 9 holes to play, or maybe 10 holes to play, I think he was still 3 up. So he had a fairly good lead coming down the stretch. And then he started making a couple little mistakes, and Will and I sort of Will was sort of telling me, hang in there, bud, like this guy's going to eventually, you can't keep doing this forever. Although
thinking about
Joseph was probably saying that about my putting as well, and I kept holding putts. But yeah, he hit a few bad shots coming in. I made a few nice birdies. We both birdied 14, then I birdied 15 and 16 to win those 2 holes, and that got it up all square, or maybe 1 up. I think 1 up. Oh no, that was 2 up to me. And then it was Dormy 2 up, and I there was a short little downhill par 3. I hit 9-iron, he hit wedge down there, and I left myself 30 feet, and he hit it quite close. And sort of knew if I 2-putted, that put the pressure on him, and I'd be a good chance of winning. And I sort of lagged it up there to 3 feet, not quite gimme range, just that nervous knee knocker. And
yeah.
And he missed his. And there was actually a funny incident. I don't know if you read about it or looked into it, but on the last green, for whatever reason, he took his hat off to shake my hand. And then I guess either realized that he'd made a mistake or what, but he shook my hand and then's gone, oh wait, no, sorry, it's not good.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So you've got 3 foot, and he's sort of come over to sort of say, look, I'll give it to you, and well done for the win. And then he's realized that, hang on, I won't give it to you.
Yeah. So me and my caddy were like, hold on a minute. Like we were like, he's done this on purpose, I think. Because we thought he did it intentionally. Just the way he said it and the way it came across, we thought it was an intentional maneuver to try and throw me off.
Oh my God.
But I'm sure Joseph probably didn't mean that. I don't know what was going through his head. But it definitely threw me. And I had to hold a 3-footer.
So did you have a rules official to come over and say, oh, did you talk about it, or what happened?
It was funny because I think we both took our hats off. We definitely shook hands. But as he was saying it, he was like, oh, no, it's not good. So in the meantime, the rules official was thinking it's done. So he's coming over ready with the trophy. And I'm like, oh, no. Like I had to wave off the rules official to say, no, it's not good. So
oh man,
it was a really awkward finish.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds pretty ordinary. But I guess in one sense, to go back and say, I'm going to hold this on you anyway, and stuff. Yeah, it might have been because I know that I did see the reaction when you hold it. You ran straight to your caddy, and you left him a little bit of heck. So I don't know if you did that on purpose, but I actually noticed that. I noticed that you didn't shake him first. And
there was probably a little bit of intentional move there, like the way the impression I got from Joseph was that he was maybe trying to do something. So
last ditch effort.
I wanted to embrace the man that was with me all day rather than him initially.
Well, that makes a lot more sense to me. I that puts it into context. Not that it was a bad thing that you did. Don't get me wrong, but it makes a little bit more sense watching it. Yeah, for sure. That is an interesting story. I can't believe that, but good on you. You got him in the end. And I think he said afterwards that it sounded a bit poor me, but you putted the lights out. He's never seen anyone putt that good, and so obviously it hurt him.
Whenever you're playing someone that flushes it, and then somehow you beat them with your putting, it always feels a bit arsey, and you feel like you've sort of stolen it away from them. So, but I don't know, I'll take it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you were 3 down, think twice in the last 36, because the finals obviously 36 holes. So talk us through your mindset when you were getting 3 down. You talked about momentum before, and I think that's undervalued in something, even stroke play. I think if you can just build on some pressure for you. I think that's huge for your opponent, especially coming down the stretch. So talk us through your 3 down scenarios and your mindset going into that scenario.
Yeah, I guess my main sort of thoughts whenever I was down was to not let the opportunity leave. Like this could be my only chance to play the Masters and US Open, a couple of the best events in the world, and a childhood dream to play those events,
Sure.
And to let that opportunity slip away would be incredibly disappointing. So I sort of had to, every time I was sort of trending downwards, I had to sort of tell myself, just don't let this opportunity slip.
So the motivation came from the Masters and the US Open?
I'd say so. Yeah. I mean, it was great chatting to Will. Will was great all week on my bag, and it was sort of funny. Before the final, my intentions were to turn pro straight after the mid-am, assuming I didn't win.
Right.
And for me, all week, I felt like I was really excited to come back home, turn pro, play pro golf, regardless of the outcome of the week. And it was only when I got to the final that I kind of had to reassess my goals and go, hold on a minute.
Yeah, that was a lot.
Winning the US mid-am and playing the Masters in US Open is a better outcome than turning pro and playing some Aussie Tour events for a few months. So
yeah, I think so, mate. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it was funny, but yeah, like I said, those first few rounds of match play, there was definitely it felt like a win-win scenario for me. If I won, I'm through to more match play stages, and if I lost, I'm going home and I'm turning pro. But then, yeah, obviously having to get my mindset more into a win-lose situation in the final, sort of, it was a bit of a kick up the arse to try and fight back, I think.
Yeah, it's good to have a good mate on the bag too, because golf's a lonely sport, and I don't think people understand how lonely it can be. So it's important to have a good team around you, and definitely having a nice friend on the bag definitely helps that situation. But yeah, you stormed home, birdie 4 of the last 8, got him.
Yeah,
shook his hand eventually. Good on you, mate. And then so you're the first international winner as well. So I think that's another cool little record you've got.
Yeah, it was obviously really cool to be that person that broke the US streak that they had in that event.
That's 36 years, I think. I think it's been around.
Yeah, I think it's just, it probably more reflects on the strength of mid-am golf in the US. Like I was saying, like all those guys that reinstate their amateur status, or guys that played college golf. I mean, there's a lot of good players that played college golf that didn't make it out on tour, so that a lot of those guys are still playing competitive stuff. Yeah, so it's strong over there, and yeah, it was great to be that first one to break the trend.
All right, mate. Well, we're going to talk about the Masters. So I hear you've already experienced the track. Talk us through the preparation that you had, and then is the preparation changing now that it's obviously changed? Did you feel like that's an opportunity to change something up, or did you feel like you're on the right track with how you're preparing for the track?
Yeah, so I went over in December. I sort of mapped out my schedule. So I won the mid-am in September, and then got my invite sort of January, but I knew I was in the club let me know that I was in the tournament and that I could come practice sort of whenever, and that was in November. So I mapped out my schedule.
Was that an email, or how did they tell you? Or
I think it was there was an initial info letter that didn't include the invitation, and then there was, I think, an email follow-up as well.
Nice.
But yeah, I managed to find a little time in the schedule between a few events. So I played the Aussie Open, and then 3 or 4 days later, I flew out to the US and spent a week over there, 3 days at Augusta, just sort of scoping out the course, getting used to the conditions. And it was softer and slower than I'll see it in whenever the tournament happens.
Yeah,
but it was just good to just visualize some of the tee shots and see the sort of shots I need to play. And I was able to go back home sort of with that in mind to sort of fine tune my game for the upcoming months.
Sure. And talk about that. Is it more like a shot shaping? What sort of shot do you feel like you need to work on for skill wise?
Yeah, I felt like definitely being comfortable hitting a draw is paramount.
Right.
They're like, there's a lot of tee shots where if you can hit a nice draw, you get a big advantage.
Yeah, sure.
The second hole, 13th,
10.
you name it. Yeah, 10. There's a bunch of holes where if you can
Mm.
hit a little crispy draw, it helps a lot. So yeah, I guess that's been one thing. And probably the other thing, they talk about, Royal Melbourne being a second shot golf course. And I think Augusta's a lot like that as well. The precision of your iron play needs to be spot on, because if you're leaving yourself with 40, 50 foot putts or difficult up and downs, it's not easy. So just ensuring my iron play is really sharp. They were sort of a couple of things. And actually, I've been seeing a coach in the US when I'd been back and forward, a guy called Dana Dahlquist in LA.
Yep.
And I went and saw him after my mid-am win, and then I went and saw him in December as well. So he's more than anyone I've ever got lessons from. He's super technical, and I kind of like that. I've got an engineering background, and I'm fairly curious about that sort of stuff. So for me, knowing how the golf swing works, I really love that. And sort of being able to almost self-coach in a way is really important to me.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went and saw him on the way back home, and we sort of put together a little bit of a timeline, a plan of what I was going to work on leading up to the Masters. But it was tricky because I had so many tournaments in January and February, Aussie summer, obviously. So had to sort of fit it all in. Couldn't really do too much technique work in that period. But it's sort of funny now, because now I've got the perfect opportunity with no tournaments on, can't even go out to the golf course and play holes. Now is actually a perfect time to work on that stuff that we were working on. So certainly the plans and the preparation has changed a bit, but
in a good way.
Sort of taking it as a bit of an opportunity, to work on stuff that I wouldn't otherwise have had the opportunity to work on.
Sure. And just generally with your golf game, what's your sort of tendencies that, in terms of what do you tend to work on? What's your weaknesses that you'd like to sort of keep on top of in your game?
It's funny. As a kid, I always felt like I was a pretty good ball striker, and I sort of, for some reason, as I got older, it kind of was never as good as I'd hoped it to be. And it was funny because leading into the probably 12 or 18 months ago, my short game was horrible. My chipping and putting and my ball striking was still pretty good.
Right.
And then in the last 12 months, my chipping and putting has gotten so much better, but I feel like my ball striking's fallen off. So it's like a seesaw,
Golf, mate. Golf.
It always like that. So at the moment, I am doing a fair bit more work on golf swing stuff. Well, particularly at the moment. But leading into tournaments, if I want to work on getting my ball striking better, I'll sort of throw away the technique stuff, not worry too much about that in the maybe leading 2, 3, 4 weeks.
Yes.
And just try and find some feels that I can use on course. But it'll be a bunch of playing golf holes. I'd rather that over hitting 1,000 balls on the range. But if I do go to the range, it'll be your shot shaping drills to targets and more stuff that's less based around technique and more based around hitting shots. And,
visualization.
And visualization. Yeah, exactly. So that was sort of where I was trending in February, March, was hitting a few more balls in the range, just with shot shapes and trajectories and low, mids, highs, draws, fades, straights, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But then also just playing a lot more holes. And I felt like my putting was in a really good position. So I didn't really have to worry too much about that. And my chipping and bunker play is pretty solid. So I just needed to, fine tune the driving and iron play, and that would have been sweet, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, leading back to Augusta, it's so important, isn't it? The chipping and putting and the approach shots and you watched Tiger last year, and he's so good at positioning his ball, isn't he? Coming down the stretch, he didn't hit the one on 16, he hit to 3 feet, but he just knew where to position the ball so he wouldn't make a mistake. And it was quite
even
impressive.
Coming up 18 there, like just to miss the green right where he did and have that easy pitch shot in, like
Use
it was
the
just
slope.
he just played it perfectly, and he hit I mean, he's probably the best iron player of all time. So watching where he's sort of positioning his balls into greens and stuff like that was pretty valuable for someone like me that's going to be playing there, hopefully. So,
yeah. Hopefully you can somehow draw him, man, in one of the rounds. That'll be fantastic. But
yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Which hole did you like the most over there? Which hole do you sort of feel like you love looking at the most, or even playing? It doesn't have to be a playing hole that you like. Just
there was a few holes that like you don't see very much on TV. Like I think 3, the short par 4, is a really good hole.
Yeah.
You know, it's a tricky pitch shot wherever you hit the fairway. Like I was speaking to my caddy when I was over there, and he was sort of saying, you know, some guys lay up here, but he just didn't see the point in laying up because it's a hard shot with a pitching wedge into the green. So why would you? You might as well get to 40, 30, 50 meters out. So, that was a cool one. Just to sort of see that little pitch shot, you got to hit into that green. You got to be so precise.
And I'd say you'd have to be on the fairway there too, because I noticed when you run off into the rough, it's a trickier shot.
Yeah. So and it depends on where the pin's located. So it's like a reflected L-shaped green. It kind of, it's got a front left little finger and a back right finger.
Looks tough.
And you've got if the pin's way left, you could either hit it as far right as you can and sort of try and hit one that soft little flop shot that sort of lands middle of the green and rolls down to the pin, or you can go as far left as you want and sort of play more up the level of the green. It's
right.
And then back right pin's almost the opposite strategy. So it's just a really cool hole. And then obviously like 13 is a great hole.
Yeah.
The tee shot you got to hit there if you want to get on like a flat lie, you got to hit this perfect bomb draw over the trees. But if you sort of bail out, you could have this really tricky sort of long iron into the green that sort of slopes the other way to where you want to hit it. So it's really, it's really cool.
It sounds like a fun track. It just, not only how impressive it looks, but it just sounds like a really fun track to play. Yeah,
it's one of the best. It's got to be one of the best courses in the world. Like, even with all the money they've got to make it perfect condition, like even if it wasn't in perfect condition, it'd still be a great fun track to play all the time.
Does 12 look as impressive as it does on TV? Like just being on the tee and looking down and you can see 11 over there on the left.
Yeah, it's probably the little walk where you round the corner on 11 and then you see like 12 in the background, and like that's probably like the revealing moment of the course where everything sort of becomes real. You're like, oh shit, I'm actually at Augusta.
It's crazy.
12's awesome. I mean, that green's so much shallower front to back, and like it's got to be, I mean, it's sort of on a diagonal, but I'd say like the actual depth of that green is probably only 8 or 9 meters. So you got to be so precise with your club selection. And when they talk about the wind, you know, swirling as it does, I definitely got a bit of an experience of that when I was there as well. So makes the club selection so tough.
Yeah, nice. So I want to head back to just after your mid-am, you came back and obviously you got some invites into the Aussie Tour Pro events. I think, did you play 3 events towards the end of the year?
I played the WA PGA, played the WA Open, which was, it's a Pro-Am series event. It was last year just because I think the purse wasn't big enough to be a tour event. And then I played New South Wales Open and Aussie Open. So 4 in the end. So
and the Aussie Open, you did pretty well too. You came in, I think, 21st. Was that your first sort of few tournaments as like in the professional ranks that you've played?
Yeah, I'd played a couple Vic Opens because I was a state team member, and before the Vic Open was a European Tour event. The state team would get a start in the Vic Open. So I played that a couple times, and you know, I think I made the second round cut there once, and then missed the third round cut. So I'd sort of hadn't played great in pro events. But then, obviously to place 21st in the Aussie Open was definitely my best result in a pro event. It sort of gave me a bit of confidence that my game was sort of trending in the right direction, that I could sort of potentially
Match it.
do something with my golf for sure. So, yeah, that was really cool. I didn't draw any like outstanding groups, but to be, 3 or 4 groups back from the lead, I think I was coming tied 9th through 2 rounds. So I played pretty close to the end of the day on Saturday, which was pretty cool, and teeing off with a fairly big crowd. And,
nice buzz.
yeah, it was really cool to be a part of. So I really enjoyed that.
Did you feel a bit of a different pressure when you're in a pro event, or because you're an amateur and there's no money on the line, do you feel like it's pretty similar?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely felt bigger as an event. But yeah, without the financial incentive, I'm sure that'll feel different. I haven't had that experience yet, but I'm sure that'll feel a little bit different. Especially if, you're coming with how steeply the money kind of drops off in pro events, like, 10th place versus 30th is maybe only 3 or 4 shots, but it's a lot of money. So I'm sure that pressure will come to me when I make the decision to turn pro.
Yeah, when you're over a birdie or par putt in the last, there's like 5-10 grand riding on or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So how are you going to prepare for that then?
I think I'll probably just try and keep it similar. I think I dealt with it pretty well at the mid-am. I mean, I think that's as much pressure as any dollar amount. I mean, to play the Masters in US Open's almost priceless in terms of, for a good player to play those events, there'd be a lot of guys that would pay a lot of money to have that opportunity. So I think I dealt with the pressure pretty well there. I was doing a little bit of like mindfulness, sort of meditation stuff throughout the week, and I've sort of kept doing that since. I think that really helps. I haven't really seen any sports psychs like personally. I've sort of read a couple books, and Nico Hearn's book, and Pia Nilsson, she's got one. So I've read a couple books, and I kind of prefer learning a lot of that stuff myself. But if I had the opportunity or felt like I needed to, I'm sure I would go see a psych if I felt like that was necessary. But at the moment, I'm just sort of trying not to change too much, and feel like I dealt with it well when it came up. So
talk about the mindfulness though, that stuff you're doing with meditation. How did you get into that? Is that part of reading the books, or how did you sort of get into that sort of thing?
I had a friend at uni actually, and he was a 800-meter runner, and he introduced me to one of the apps that he was using. It's actually an Australian app. I've actually forgotten the name of it, which is bad. But I started using that a couple of years ago, but didn't really end up taking it too seriously until sort of last year. And then just sort of would do just the body scan ones. I just felt like before around a golf, particularly ones where I was feeling a bit more anxious, like I wouldn't do it on a regular hit at Metro because I'm not feeling, overly worried about that. But general tournaments, I'd sort of sit down before I left home and just sort of do 5 minutes of a body scan, mindfulness sort of stuff. Because it just felt like it's just sort of reset my mind and body just to a position where I felt relaxed and that I could perform my best. And then it was funny because when I went over to Colorado, I stayed with a family. It was sorted out through a member at my home club at Metro, Metropolitan Golf Club. And it was a mutual friend, and I stayed with them. They had a nice guest room in their house in Denver. And it was about 25 minutes, 30 minutes from the course. And the lady, the wife, the husband, she was really like spiritual. Right. And she sort of got me to get even more into the mindfulness stuff that week. So she was great, actually. I probably wouldn't have won without them, I don't think. I think they got me feeling really relaxed. And they actually didn't know anything about golf, which was even better because when I went back after I'd won, the quarterfinal or whatever, we'd just chat about stuff that wasn't golf. So I got my mind off everything. I slept really well the night before the final, and then did a little bit of mindfulness at the club in the locker room before I teed off. And yeah, it was sweet.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm massive in that sort of area of the game. And, I think the preparation is key, mentally and physically. So, if you're not quite on mentally or you're a bit off physically, golf is such a physical sport, as you know, and there's not much difference between, doing well and not doing well. So I think you're on the right track there, man. It sounds like it's helped you. So
it has a lot.
Yeah, that's nice to know, mate. Cool. Well, I just want to briefly touch on getting into the game as well. You're a member at Metro, which is cool, on the Sandbelt, one of the best places in the world to play your golf. But take us through your younger days. Where did you grew up in WA, so did you start playing golf early, or how did that work out?
Yeah, I mean, it was a funny way to get into the game because neither of my parents played. None of my relatives really played. But I had a neighbor he was a big golfer. He was about a scratch handicap. He was quite a good player. He gave me a cut down club when I was 4 that his son had grown out of. And so I got it off him, started whacking it around the backyard, and my mum saw it and she said, "Oh, it's too dangerous. You can't be doing that." So she takes it away from me and I'm like loving it. And then she takes it away. And then for the next 3 years, I kind of forgot about it. And then I found it in their wardrobe.
Right.
3 years later when I was 7.
Right.
Got it out again, started whacking it, had a bit more skill this time and managed to like hit the ball like decently in the backyard. Not that big of a backyard, but could sort of just chip it around and hit some shots. And then I actually hit it over the house into the neighbour's house, the same neighbour who gave me the club initially. And then I was hooked. Like I told my mum, like next birthday, mum and dad, I told them that I wanted some golf clubs.
Nice.
And so they got me like a super cheap set from like Toys R Us or somewhere.
Yeah.
Went down to the school and was hitting balls around the school, like in the like after school with my dad. And then he sort of saw that I was actually pretty decent at it and sort of got some clinics at a local driving range, and then occasionally would play like 9 holes after school there. And then eventually at the same time, my parents were sort of looking, keeping their eyes peeled for like junior programs at clubs because I was like 8 or 9 and sort of wanted to play a bit more like sort of almost like comp golf. And then there was a course in Perth, you would have heard of it, Lake Carrinup Country Club. And really good course. They've got a short 9-hole par 3s and 4 course. And they had a really good sub-junior program. So I got involved in that, luckily. My parents just rang up and it was mainly for sons and daughters of members, but they managed to sneak me into it somehow.
Yeah, nice.
And fortunately, it was about a minute from our house, the course. So I started playing sub-junior golf there until I was 12 or 13 and then properly joined as a junior member and was playing some junior tournaments and all that. And I think I got down to like single figures when I was 12. And then was off scratch when I was like 15 or 16. And then sort of was playing really competitive golf, played a couple junior interstate series for WA. And then, when I finished school, I'd always been pretty big on my academics. My parents sent me to a really good school. They sort of spent every penny they had to send me to a really good school. And then I sort of didn't want to waste their money in a way. So I was focusing on my school in my last couple of years at school. I was focused on my academics and then sort of thought about college golf. But my golf probably wasn't quite good enough to get into some of the colleges that I had my sights set on.
Sure.
So Melbourne seemed like a good, sort of really good option to keep developing my golf and get a really good degree too. So that's what I ended up doing.
So you moved to Melbourne. How old were you when you moved to Melbourne?
I was 18, so straight after high school, moved to Melbourne. Metro was a reciprocal club of Lake Carrinup.
Oh yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so joined through that arrangement. Yeah, it was so good. Although Carrinup had Royal Melbourne and Kingston Heath too, so I had a pretty good selection.
You're kidding.
But Metro were just great to me when I came. And they had a really good set of young guys there. Yeah, I felt like Royal and Kingston Heath didn't quite have that set up when I was coming over.
Did Marty Steele look after you, mate?
Yeah. So Marty was there when I arrived. Shout out to Marty.
Yeah, shout out to Marty. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I've loved it ever since living in Melbourne. Just opportunities for golf and had a really good time at university as well. And to do that exchange to St Andrews in Scotland through Melbourne's University of Melbourne's arrangement there was incredible. So I've had a lot of good opportunities.
Oh well, it sounds like the academic came to the fore then with the exchange. Then that sounded like a fun. Yeah, that was awesome. Doing that 6 months abroad. I wasn't doing too much studying in that 6 months. It was mainly golf. Living in the town of St Andrews, we had a deal where I think I paid £200 at the beginning of the year, and that gave me access to
the old course, new course, all the courses in
Nice.
St Andrews for a full year. Didn't have to pay a cent after that, £200. So
How was St Andrews, mate?
yeah, incredible. I love the town. I met so many cool people as well, like people I'll, have connections with for the rest of my life.
Yeah, it's a great industry.
Yeah. So I've had people, come down to Melbourne, because Melbourne's a pretty big sort of destination for golf travel and that. And I've had a bunch of friends come down and play Metro with me that I met when I was over there. And yeah, it's awesome to know those people.
Yeah, nice. And did you find a coach when you got to Melbourne, or who'd you work with? Early days there?
Yeah. So when I moved across, I chatted to a few people in Perth, and they recommended the Yarra Bend, Ban Lynch sort of guys.
Yep.
So initially, for the first sort of 5 or so years, I worked with Andrew Pitt.
Oh yeah, Andrew.
He was really good. But then I felt like just my game kind of hit a bit of a ceiling, and I just wanted to look into a few other parts, and I was sort of a curious mind as well. So initially I had a couple 3D sessions with Ryan Lumsden,
right?
Who's from South Australia. And that kind of got me curious about sort of the biomechanics side of things. And then that sort of led me down the path of seeking out someone else. And
yeah, sure.
And that sort of led me to Dana Dahlquist in the US when I saw him. So it's sort of, but I mean, if you look at where my swing was when I moved to Melbourne, and then, after 5 years with Pitty, it was a pretty big, pretty big game. Change. Yeah.
And so are you a little bit Bryson DeChambeau in the way you look at swings now, are you?
Probably, I don't know.
You love it?
I love technique and golf swing and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess a little bit. I like knowing what I'm doing, but I mean, no one really knows what they're doing. So, but there's a certain level to that I like knowing what's happening. And I think, 5 years of study doing an engineering degree when everything's about how things work and how things, especially mechanical engineering, which is what I was doing, which is all about moving parts and that sort of stuff. It's sort of been ingrained into me to try and want to understand how a machine like the body works. So
it's all part of the confidence, isn't it? It's all part of the preparation. Like if you get on the course and know that you're moving well and you're in the spots you want to be, and then you add your mindfulness to it, you got the full package.
Well, someone like Bryson DeChambeau as well, like the reason he's good is he fully wholeheartedly believes that he is smarter than everyone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he
sort of comes across a little bit. But I've heard some great stories about him though. Sharing his, with the little kids and he gets a bit of a bad rap, I think.
Yeah, he gets a bad rap. But like the reason he's good, he might not be correct in some of the stuff he says, but he fully believes he has better information than anyone. And because of that, he has the confidence.
Yeah, exactly.
That, like so much higher than everyone else that he just plays well. Like
exactly.
It doesn't necessarily have to be right, but you just got to believe it.
Correct. Oh, I think you're onto it, man. Golf is such a no one's been able to put their finger on it, sort of thing. And it's nice to delve into the conversations with people that are in the sport.
Yeah, there's so many aspects to golf. Like it's about perfecting everything. That's what makes it so interesting, I think. Like you're never bored trying to get better.
No, exactly. And no one can reach perfection with the game. It's just so far away from everyone that it just keeps on driving people. So and sometimes that's a detriment too, right? Some people go, I need to do this, need to do that, and they lose themselves a little bit in their game. That's sort of happened over the past. So
I've definitely made a mine sort of did that. It was funny. Have you heard of a guy called Tom Powell-Horan?
No, I haven't.
He plays a bit of Aussie tour stuff, and it was funny because he was quite a good player coming out of the amateur ranks and then turned pro, sort of like me, did a university degree, but then turned pro, got his card in Oz, played, decent his first year, played decent his second year, and then at some point decided that he needed to change everything because he was never going to be like a world-class player.
Right.
So went through like over like basically a year of just trying to change his swing, change everything about what he was doing, and then just couldn't play. And then in the middle of that year, he decided to just forget everything and just play golf, like golf on a golf course, like didn't even go to the range. Because like for 18 months, he was just hitting balls on the range constantly trying to change his swing.
Sure.
So he went the complete opposite and went to the golf course every time he went there and just played 9 holes, 9 holes, 18 holes, 9 holes, 9 holes. And then 3 months after he did that, he won an Aussie Tour event. It was just like the funniest story.
It's an experiment, right?
But it's funny now he's like lost the drive again because he's like, but obviously at the moment for pro golfers, it's a tough time. Like, especially like the lower tours, like the Aussie Tour and that.
Money and
if you're relying on that little bit of money and then there's no tournaments on, well, you're in a tough position. So,
is there anyone you want to shout out to for their help or over your journey thus far? Do you want to mention?
I'd say I got a mate. He owns a business called Golf Studio.
Yep.
In Mordialloc, and I've been able to practice there and work on my game there, and that's been great. But Matt, who's one of the owners there, he was on the bag of the Aussie Open, and he was just great for me there, and we get along well, and we hang out all the time, and he's a great guy, and big shout out to Matt and Golf Studio.
Yeah, fantastic. Mordialloc, I used to live in Mordialloc, man. It's a great part of the world. Isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good down there. I love the setup he's got there. He's got TrackMan in every bay. He's got 2 golf sims and a coaching area and a big putting green. So it's
like a driving range, is it, or inside?
It's like an indoor. It's like a big factory, basically. It's like the back house of a factory. They've just cleared it out and put in like a bunch of hitting bays.
Yeah, cool.
It's a really cool setup.
I'll check it out. Yeah, I'll check it out for sure. That'd be awesome. I love that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you love it. Yeah.
Mate, I appreciate your time again. It was nice chatting. And as I said, I hope after you come back, we can have a chat about how it went.
Yeah, for sure. Alrighty. Thanks, Jake.
Too easy, Lucas. All right, mate. We'll be in touch.
Yeah, catch you later. Bye.
All the best, mate.